Arch Advocate Podcast Part 2. Told you guys before many times, I don't care who the politician is or who my favorite person is. I don't care who it is. If you break the law, then you need to be prosecuted if found guilty. In the case of politicians, I think that you should be punished very publicly. There's a reason for that. And I've made this observation before. I don't believe that criminal punishment has really anything to do with the criminal at all. It has to do with communicating to the society, here's what happens to you if you do, this thing over here or that thing over there. All right? Now, that being said, there's a big difference between, voter fraud, right? Voter tampering versus undue influence, right? In the case of the Russian collusion thing, collusion with like 3 O's, collusion. What is the charge, right? It's that Donald Trump paid a Russian agency to run some Facebook ads for less than $300,000, right? To my understanding, there has been no sort of accusations made that Donald Trump paid somebody to screw with actual ballots, or to screw with the actual functioning of the way that our balloting system and the counting of those ballots works, as far as I know, right? Everything that we've been given so far, I'm sure it's very complicated and it has a lot of moving parts, but what it all boils down to is the Democrats are saying that Donald Trump paid a Russian company a bunch of money to run Facebook ads. And maybe those ads were just fake news or whatever. We don't know. But that brings up a lot of questions like, well, is that illegal? Is saying things that are bad for your opponent, whatever, like is that against the law? Is it against the law to do what he did? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, you're talking about social media. Social media has only been around for a handful of years, so the precedent that is on the books, there can't be very much of it. And when you talk about, well, I paid this Russian agency some money to run Facebook ads, it's like, well, that's not the same thing as paying for the plane tickets of, 1 million Russians to come into America and illegally vote. It's a very different thing. Now, I don't want to get too conspiratorial, and go off the deep end in conspiracy theory here, but the fact is, there's a number of facts here that we need to look at. Number one, Project Veritas has, within the last few days, caught people, Democrat ballot workers, right? Keep that in mind. Ballot workers, people that we have established laws about. It's like, okay, if you work the ballots, we actually have laws in our state constitutions about that particular job, and we have federal law. And there's precedent, like if you screw it, like those people that hang out in front of stores with clipboards asking you to sign a petition? Not the people that are asking you to sign a survey, but like in California, we are a petition state. Like if you want to be able to vote on something, you have to gather enough signatures, there's a lot of money involved, and that's how you get measures on the ballot. That is federally protected, right? Under free speech and all kinds of different things, it's like you cannot screw with that. It's against the law. If a petitioner who is getting paid per signature decides to go home and just go through the white pages and just start writing people's names in and giving false signatures, that's a felony. It's federal, right? That's a felony. Just the simple act of doing something stupid like that is a felony. Screwing with the ballots is a felony. Knowingly bringing people in who are not registered to vote and are not legal to vote, it's against the law. Project Veritas has been exposing these last few days a number of people, Democrats, bragging that they are knowingly letting people vote that don't have the right to vote, right? So when we get into this, Russian collusion versus actual voter fraud debate or conspiracy theory or whatever it is, whatever name that you want to give to the rabbit hole that we're about to go down, it doesn't matter, right? The two things are very different, right? When somebody puts a television commercial on, that costs a lot of money, right? And the bigger the stakes, the more money it costs, right? You run an ad against Beto O'Rourke or Ted Cruz, it's like, that's going to cost you money. And if you're Ted Cruz and you're paying all this money to point out facts like Beto O'Rourke got into a car crash, he's got his parents may or may not have ties to the drug cartels, like that's something that needs to be looked at. Like Beto O'Rourke was busted, he got arrested for it's either trespassing or something like that. There were some pretty serious charges. It's like, well, you can do that. You're allowed to smear your opponent. You're allowed to use the media to clobber your opponents. Not against the law, right? I wish it was, but it's not. Donald Trump paying for Facebook ads, that's one thing. People that are knowingly fudging numbers, people that are screwing with the ballot system, we already have laws for that. And more, it's like the old thing, that joke that goes around every time there's an election is like, oh boy, there's, it's going to be the second coming of Christ because there's going to be all these people raised from the dead and they're all going to go down and vote Democrat. There's a reason why we have those sayings in America. Now, it just kind of goes over our heads because it's like, whatever. We don't really do anything about it because it's like, again, like we're busy. We don't want to be bothered with the fact that there's corruption and brokenness in our political system, but it's like, well, I'm rich, I'm well off, I'm paying my bills, I'm good. It's like, no, like there's this brokenness. These people that are letting illegals come into our country and vote, that is voter fraud, right? That is collusion. Do you see what I'm saying? They're trying to overthrow our nation by way of manipulating our voting system. I wanted to talk about this because, look, so the Democrats, they get an astounding win in Congress and an astounding defeat in the Senate. That smells fishy, right? They turned some governorships, lost more than they turned. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that need to be explained in this, and there needs to be an effort from the executive office now, right? This needs to happen now. It's like, look, ask any Democrat, like, do you think voter fraud is okay? Do you think it's okay for people to vote in our country illegally, regardless of what you feel about the law itself? Do you think it's okay for people to break our voting laws? Right? And I'm sure there's a lot of them who say, well, sure, I mean, if it gives me the win. And this is the point, is that these people will do anything to win. And that's why I'm saying you need to send an email or a text message to your congressperson and to the president. You can go on to his Twitter, send him a message and say, we demand an investigation into this vote. I don't care how much it costs or the manpower that it's going to, the resources that it's going to drain in manpower and treasure and all that other stuff. It's like, we need to know if our ballot system is functioning properly. And we need to have voter ID. This is not, you have to have some sort of method of making sure that only people who are registered to vote legally are voting. Because this is the whole thing. There's all of this. There's all of these different points of like recent. I'm not talking about over the years and years. I'm talking about in the last few weeks of people on camera on spy cams bragging about how Democrats manipulate the system. Look, we can't have that. We can't have that as a functioning country, right? You need to reach out to your congressperson with an email and reach out to the President of the United States on his Twitter reach out to Lindsey Graham on his Twitter, and what's his name, the gray-haired, Trey Gowdy. Reach out to these people. Reach out to Brett Kavanaugh and these people and say, look, we need an investigation into every single one of these ballots that were cast. To re-examine and find out, like, are these people registered to vote? Because something tells me, like, as desperate as the Democrats are to retake power, think about what's going to happen now for the next 2 years, right? The Democrats got quite a bit of power, but it's just enough to be a hindrance. They're not going to be able to get anything done. And they're not going to be able to stop everything, but they're going to be able to slow the process down quite a bit, right? Like building the wall. Well, that has, approving the budget for the wall, that has to go through Congress. So guess what? That's not on the table anymore. Building that wall is not on the table anymore. Unless the President of the United States does something so dramatic, like using his unexhaustible wealth to create his own version of some sort of like GoFundMe or PayPal or something of that nature, and say, look, right, you're not going to get a tax break, right? If you donate to this, you're not going to get a tax break. There's nothing in it for you other than the wall. But I need a bunch of money, and I've got let's say there's 150 million people who vote in America. Well, that's about 75 million people who vote Republican. 75 million people. Let's say you need, I don't know, 75 million times $10, right? Well, that wall would get built pretty quickly if that were the case, right? If Donald Trump needs the money and he has to go through Congress to get it, there's ways around that now, given that there is social media and the fact that he's so exposed on TV, on his Twitter, whatever. He could just reach out to the American people and say, all right, everybody, I need you to send me $20. How quickly would that wall get built? And Congress wouldn't be able to do a damn thing about it, right? Because the issue isn't building the wall. The issue is the cost. Somebody was making the point the other day. It's like, well, he could use the money from the military. He could do that. Because the issue isn't the wall. The issue is the money, right? And how little would it take, given the climate of today, given the fact that we have social media and we have a president who's always on social media and always on TV, how hard would it be for him to just reach out to the American people and say, look, we need some money, right? There is so much effery going on in our voting system, and it needs to stop. The system is being overrun, and you and I'll do it, right? As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to write to the president on his Twitter and say, look, we need to examine these cases where, there's people on television, or people on recordings saying, oh yeah, we have tons, literally quotes, tons of DACA recipients in here voting. We need to look into that, and then we need to find the pattern and apply that to every other area, right? The fact that Gavin Newsom just won California, it's mind-boggling, right? Gavin Newsom is a really bad guy, and he's a really bad leader. You go look at the state of affairs that San Francisco is in. Those people are not happy, right? But they're in their just little liberal bubble, and it's like, oh, I guess it's okay that there's human feces everywhere. But that's how Gavin Newsom left San Francisco. Guess what? He's now in charge of, I believe, the 7th largest economy in the world. That's not a good recipe. And guess what? There's an estimated 40, or what is it? Somebody was saying 40 million, but it's like, no, that's impossible. There's only 40 million people in California. So it's like 10 million, I think. Like a quarter of the state is there illegally. You know what I mean? And with that many people that are just wandering around doing whatever, it's like, how easy would it be to screw the system? A system that runs on paper and ink. I'm talking about the ballot system. You know what I mean? How easy would it be in this day and age, given everything we know, how easy would it be to manipulate that system? It's like that movie Catch Me If You Can, right? And that guy that movie was about, like, he lived in the 60s, and he was just like, wait a minute, so well, hold on, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You're saying all I have to do is fill out this piece of paper and just put a dollar amount in there, and if I give it to you, you're going to give me money in cash. He's like, well, I don't understand why everybody's not doing this. This is silly. And he made millions of dollars doing that because he saw a flaw and he saw a vulnerability in the system, and he was just looking around going, am I the only one who's seeing what's happening here? Well, that's how our voting system is. Our voting system is literally, you go down to a room at your local church or library or whatever, and you go into a little box, and you fill out this piece of paper, check mark, check mark, check mark, and then you stick it in the box. Do you want me to sit here and list off the ways? It's like, if I was a manipulator, like, you know how easy it would be for me to figure out how to manipulate that system? You mean to tell me I just walk in here, no ID, or an ID that may or may not be real? You're telling me that all I have to do, given today's technology with swipe cards and magnetic strips and all that stuff that everybody has on their IDs now, you mean to tell me that just some jackass from Mexico can come in here with his little California ID card and not have to swipe it, not nothing, but the very fact that he has it means he gets to vote for a senator or a U.S. congressman? Wow. How easy would that be to manipulate it? It would be very easy. If I wanted to make this particular podcast about that, like, I could sit here and I could probably list off 10 different ways that I could manipulate that and get away with it. You need to call your congressperson, write to your congressperson, tweet to your congressperson, and you must tweet to the president to say, Mr. President, we need to have an investigation into November 6th. Given the fact that there's all these people bragging, ha 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 ha, we're screwing the American people. Isn't this funny? Isn't this funny that we're screwing the will of the people? You know what I mean? That's, again, I don't want to get all conspiracy theory, but it's not a theory, right? It's not the same as the Young Turks talking about Russian collusion. It's like, dude, we have the FBI investigating that, right? If you think Donald Trump committed a crime, I'm with you. If you believe that he committed a crime and you have enough evidence to prosecute, or in this case, impeach, right? Because you can't, it's different if you're the president. But impeachment just means prosecute, right? And if people come up, if Bob Mueller comes up with enough evidence where he can go to some lawyers and judges and whatever and say, look, we need to prosecute this guy, and those people agree, guess what? I'll be the first person to say, yes, let's go through the impeachment process and find out if we all believe he's guilty or innocent. Because I can't stand corruption in politics. I don't care who it is. Listen, I'm a huge fan of Donald J. Trump, but if he broke the law, I can't stand that. I won't stand for that. And I won't stand for it in any of our politicians anymore. Right? And if these people did commit voter fraud, I won't stand for that either. For the same reason. Now, I bring that up because it's real easy to try to say, like, oh, well, look at what these people are doing, and then not look at the mess in your own backyard. I'm not doing that. I'm telling you, like, if Donald Trump is crooked, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, if these people committed crimes, I want them prosecuted. I want anybody who is guilty of the crime of treason or any form of usurping the will of the people, or really anything at all, almost everything, I want them prosecuted. And I want them punished so that the whole world can see it. Right? So we're living in a time where the facts are being just brazenly shown to us. When Project Veritas goes out and they get these people on tape bragging, about screwing with the system. And nobody's going to say anything about it? Nobody's going to demand an investigation? And here's another thing too, man. Donald Trump needs to release those files. The FISA warrant file, all that stuff, right? The Democrats keep bringing up like, oh, well, we want to see his tax returns. Okay. What if we did this? How about from now on, anybody in public service, either in the executive branch, running for Congress or Senate or governor, how about we make a new federal law that everybody has to show their taxes? You get a tax return. You get a tax return. Everybody. What if it's everybody? How would they like that? Right? Everybody gets audited by the IRS and are assigned a forensic accountant from an outside source, like perhaps from like the FBI or something like that. You know what I mean? Like give them what they want and then give it to them right in the keister. Right? Because it's like with the Donald Trump tax thing, it's like, look, what do you think you're going to get? Barack Obama weaponized the IRS against conservative groups. You don't think that the IRS did a private audit of Donald J. Trump? You think there's something there? I hope that Donald Trump comes out and says, okay, fair enough. You want to see my tax returns? How about this? How about we make it a law? And we all have to show it, right? And then the Democrats would, run for cover, and then he would push it through anyways. I'd love to see something like that. I'm sick of this corruption, and what's even worse is like I'm sick of it being thrown in our face and nobody's doing anything about it. Project Veritas, check it out. That's this episode of the Arch Advocate podcast. I just wanted to talk about election rigging and election fraud. It's happening. It's on tape. Project Veritas. You can check it out. And that's it. And I'll do at least one more episode today. Hope you guys enjoy it. Talk to you in a little bit. If you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com. Become a monthly patron or just send some dough on PayPal if you want to do it that way. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, yo. Please. And if you're listening on a podcast, hit subscribe. Talk to you next time.